Sometimes the biggest medical lessons don't come from a textbook. They come from one person's story. And today we're going to dive into a case that is, well, it's pretty harrowing. It really shows the hidden dangers that can be lurking right in our medicine cabinets, and believe it or not, even on our dinner plates. So, let's meet Anthony Shuggart. He's a 6-year-old man who found himself at the center of a total clinical roller coaster. And his story, it's a perfect example of how quickly a totally stable medical routine can just be thrown into complete chaos, all because of a few seemingly small changes and one very, very crucial medication. All right, so before this whole ordeal started, where was Mr. Shuggart at? Well, he was living with a few chronic conditions, and that meant his health was, shall we say, a precarious stability. Okay, take a look at his profile here. He's dealing with type 2 diabetes, chronic atrial fibrillation, and a mechanical heart valve. Now that combination is a big deal. It puts him at a really high risk for blood clots and stroke. And that's exactly why he's taking a medication called Warfarin. It's a total lifesaver for him, but as you're about to see, it's also the very thing that sets this whole story in motion.
So what exactly is Warfarin? Well, it's an anticoagulant, which is just a fancy way of saying it's a blood thinner. The best way to think about it is like it puts the brakes on your body's ability to form blood clots. And for someone like Mr. Shuggart, who has that mechanical heart valve, this isn't just a nice to have. No way. It is absolutely essential to stop a truly catastrophic clot from forming.
But there's always a but, right? Here's the catch with Warfarin. It is notoriously tricky to manage. I mean, the source material for this case calls it out directly. It has severe drug-drug interactions, and it's one of the top reasons older adults end up in the ER. Its effectiveness can get thrown way off by other medications, supplements, even what you eat for dinner. Seriously, managing Warfarin is just like walking a tightrope. If you have too little in your system, you could form a clot. Too much, and you risk a massive bleed. It's a razor's edge. And for Mr. Shuggart, that tightrope walk, it went terribly, terribly wrong. All within the span of about a month. Just look at this timeline. It's this insane cascade of events. A simple foot infection leads to a stroke, which then leads to a huge internal bleed. So how on earth did this happen? Let's break it down step by painful step. So it all kicks off with something that, on the surface, seems pretty manageable, right? A foot infection. It's unfortunately pretty common for folks with diabetes. But the treatment for that infection, well, that was about to light the fuse on this whole situation. So when Mr. Shuggart first checked into the hospital for his foot, everything looked good. I mean, really good. His INR was 2.7. So what's an INR? It's basically a score that tells you how thin your blood is. For him, the target range was between 2.5 and 3.5. So 2.7? That's perfect. He was right in the sweet spot. He was stable. The tightrope was holding steady. Okay, so in the hospital, they get him on treatment for the infection. They keep him on his usual meds, the Warfarin metoprolol, but they add 2 new antibiotics. One of them is called rifampin. Let me say that again. It's rifampin. And that drug, that one new variable, is what sends this whole thing spiraling out of control. So he gets discharged. But just 5 days later, 5 days, Mr. Shuggart is right back in the emergency room. And this time, it's not a foot infection. It's a full-blown, life-threatening crisis. The tightrope didn't just wobble, it snapped. Just look at this number, his INR. It went from that perfect 2.7 all the way down, plummeting to 1.3. That is dangerously low. It means his blood wasn't thin enough anymore, at all. His protection against clots, it was just gone. And that left his mechanical heart valve completely, dangerously exposed. And the real-world consequence of that number is just devastating. With that protection gone, a clot formed. It traveled to his brain, and he had a massive ischemic stroke. He suddenly had weakness on his entire right side and couldn't speak properly, all because of that number. So what on earth caused this? It was a catastrophic double hit, a perfect storm. First, you have that antibiotic, rifampin. It's what's called a potent enzyme inducer. Now, what does that mean? Think of it like someone grabbed the remote for his liver and hit the fast-forward button. The enzymes that break down warfarin started working overtime, just chewing through the drug and clearing it from his system way, way too fast. But that's not all. The second hit was his diet. He ate a meal that was high in vitamin K, which naturally works against warfarin. So you've got the drug being flushed out too quickly and the little that's left being blocked by his food. It was the absolute perfect recipe for a stroke. Now, back in the hospital, the medical team scrambles. They act fast. They stop the rifampin immediately. They treat the stroke, and they start carefully tweaking his warfarin dose to get that INR back up into the safe zone. They're trying to fix the problem, but in doing so, they have no idea that a completely new and opposite danger is lurking right around the corner. You guessed it. Just 2 weeks later, he's back in the ER for a third time. And this time, his INR has swung violently in the other direction. I mean, look at this. It shot all the way up to a critical 8.0. Remember, the safe zone is up to 3.5, so 8.0? His blood was now way, way too thin. He was basically a ticking time bomb for a spontaneous, unstoppable bleed. And that's exactly what happened. He showed up with all the signs of a massive GI bleed. The doctors are trying to figure out what's going on, asking him, what changed, what's different? And that's when they find out. He'd been having some heartburn, so he started taking a simple, over-the-counter medication for it, cimetidine, and he hadn't thought to mention it to them. And cimetidine, as it turns out, is the polar opposite of rifampin. It's a powerful enzyme inhibitor. So if rifampin was the fast-forward button on his liver, cimetidine was the pause button. It slammed the brakes on those same enzymes, preventing them from breaking down the warfarin. So the warfarin just built up and up and up in his system until its levels skyrocketed into the danger zone. And this right here, this just perfectly illustrates the two sides of that warfarin tightrope. You have rifampin, the inducer, which basically hits the gas on warfarin metabolism. The result? His blood gets too thick and he has a stroke. Then you have cimetidine, the inhibitor, which slams on the brakes. The result? His blood gets way too thin and he has a major bleed. It's just incredible. Two different drugs with completely opposite effects on the exact same pathway in his body led to two completely different, life-threatening emergencies. Wow. I mean, Mr. Shuggart's case is so dramatic, but it's such an incredibly important lesson, isn't it? It just goes to show how complex pharmacology can be. His story is the absolute definition of walking that tightrope. And the authors who wrote up this case study really hit the nail on the head. They said his story perfectly highlights the narrow therapeutic window of warfarin. That's the key phrase right there. It's this razor-thin margin of safety where just a little too much or a little too little can have absolutely dire consequences. So what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, the most crucial point is that this story isn't just about warfarin. It's a huge flashing warning sign that your medications, your food, even your supplements can all interact in really unexpected and really dangerous ways. Just because something is over the counter does not mean it's risk-free. Not at all. And probably the biggest lesson here is how absolutely vital it is to tell your doctor, your pharmacist, your entire medical team about everything you are taking. No exceptions. And that really just leaves us with one final and kind of sobering thought, doesn't it? Mr. Shuggart's entire month-long crisis was triggered by a common antibiotic and a simple over-the-counter heartburn pill. It really makes you think. How many products in your own medicine cabinet could be silently interacting with your prescriptions right now? It's definitely a question worth asking.